Hey guys, this will be another double video on top and INBS. Top I actually did longs, only longs, which is a shame because I thought the first long was great and it worked. The second long, I'll go over the thesis behind it, but it was a really nice long that turned into an amazing short. But I made money on both of them, so I'll say right now that by the time I got onto my setup, uh, it was already about 8 a.m. market time, so 8 a.m. over here, and I just thought that the market was a lot stronger. We saw a lot of follow through, at least in the pre-market. We kind of have a shift since Holo, and we're just getting a continuation. Especially in the pre-market, where it's a lot easier to kind of push things, set up flags, set up lower high paint. And by the time I got on here, I just thought that, I told my Discord, I was like, top's really grindy. It's doing all this like very grindy action. I'm like, I really didn't see the short up here. There was a little bit. I could see why someone might take this little aggressive push, over these lower highs, right, towards high day. It's not the worst, but this is just one of those situations where something that is initially possibly weak, we could see the weakness ends up, a lot of times when I'm in shorts and I get stopped out, what ends up happening is I take these like aggressive moves, right? And it initially works and starts forming a really grindy flag, right? And top was really interesting here because it gave a very interesting bookmap signal where when it was consolidating right here, there was like three 10 to 15,000 share ass stacked on the book. So it was like 10K, 15K, 15K. But it wasn't having any reaction, right? And I've seen this on the short side where, they might put a huge bid somewhere to try to get people to buy. You might see like a 50K bid, but there's no follow through even with that huge bid there. This is kind of the same thing, just flipped upside down, where we have multiple layers of ass that are, a lot of times when you see like abnormally large ass, there's always a chance that they're there to kind of build liquidity and paint the chart, right? They're trying to paint the chart the way they want, so they put a huge bid, or especially in the pre-market, sometimes you'll see like an 80K bid or an 80K ask. And ironically, in low floats, an 80K bid can often be super weak, and an 80K ask can often be super strong, right? Um, the idea behind a big ask being strong is that they're holding it down until they want to rotate it, and when they do rotate it, which is what happened here, they started stacking bids under this, and that's where I went long. So I wasn't looking to short any type of push up to here. I actually thought it was really strong and that the market conditions were also strong. But I told my Discord, I was like, I sold some in the high day because when you're longing this, like the stock started here and I'm longing here, there's always a risk they just swipe high day. And, not necessarily that a high day clearout's going to happen, but instead, um, that the top would be in sometime soon. Maybe it goes up another couple percent or 3%, and then it pulls. So when you're longing and your average is, way up in the range, you have to, the most important thing, and I said this in previous videos, is you have to keep an eye on the bid structure, right? Um, on the book, especially in the pre-market, there has to be follow-up bids. If there's no follow-up bids, so I actually full sold my long near the top here, and that's because I learned this just came from I did get lucky. You never know you don't know if you know for example the 1 minute 20 was right here. You don't know if they're just gonna dump to the 1 minute 20, maybe bounce off it a couple times and rip, and I made a joke to my Discord like maybe this just goes to $8 or $10, you know what I mean? Like, but it's like, but I learned, and we'll look at the book that the bids start to get really thin up here, and when the bids get thin, that's when you start getting these 80-cent dumps like this, right? You get 80-cent dumps and a 50-cent push, and another 80-cent dump and an 80-cent push. You get like this volatility because the order book is so thin and it's trading good volume, right? So you get this whiplash type price action. Um, and I just learned from, a lot of times I try to hold my longs and I'm like, I'm gonna like hold my long for 50, 100% moves, and then my long suddenly goes from being in the money 30% to being in the money 10%, and then I get knifed, and then it's just like, man, one kid like I just how can I make adjustments to that? And a lot of it, if the bins start to thin up in low float land and it's starting to get really, really extended, it's usually a good idea just to get out. Um, and then this long was interesting. So one of my favorite market open longs is when they fake weakness and they throw a bunch of bids, right? And what I thought was really interesting is they were purposely holding this below 7.5. They refused to push this above 7.5 here, which I actually thought was bullish because a lot of times um, in low floats, you'll have fake half dollar and whole dollar resistance. So if a half dollar level is being defended and defended and defended and defended and defended, and they refuse to push it, and they start to fake weakness, especially at market open where they can abuse that market open volume to push it, then I'm like, oh man. I told my Discord, I'm like, if the market open volume is here, I think they're walking it down into the open. By walking it down, they're walking the stock to make it look weak so they can rotate it, right? Um, so I thought this would squeeze straight past 7.5 and maybe even up all up here. That's honestly what I thought might happen. And top is one of those manipulated tickers that does like crazy, manipulate price action like that. So we'll go over the bookmap read down here. There was a double bounce off of very clear bids with bid follow up, and I just longed it, and it broke 7.5, but it turns out 7.5 ended up being the big brain short, and a couple people, a lot of people in my Discord room are short sellers, so they have that permanent short bias, which is good and bad. It's good because you're constantly looking for the weakness, and you're not overcomplicating things, right? So that's a good. The bad thing about it is sometimes you get these insane longs, and you miss out on the A plus the long trade. Also, you kind of don't uh, sometimes you don't devote as much time to learning what a great long signal looks like. So, which I don't blame them. I was like that in the beginning of my career too. But yeah, here is that consolidation in the pre-market. You could see right here that they have like a 20,000 share ask, an 11,000, and then like a 8,000 ask. So there's like all these layers of ask that are forming these lower highs and holding it down. But what I was looking at was like, all right, if there's all these asks, it should roll over. So what's the bids looking like? And I noticed this 580 guy, and then they throw up this 595 guy, and then it starts to rotate. I was like, oh, and they also pulled this 22K guy here. I was like, this is all really like the lower high paint, the grindiness, the bids getting walked up and coming in. I thought it was all really strong, and that's why I longed here, and here's a bid follow up. So I went long. I was just very bullish. Um, and you could see here that when holding your long, you want to see is it just, in this case, it just went straight up, so it was really nice. But then I'm looking at, okay, what bids would I throw up? There's a bid here. There's a bid here. And it's like barely touching it. And then look at this, more bid follow up, right? Very easy to keep holding onto this because A, it's going straight up, and B, there's bid follow up, right? But then we start to get up here. Yeah, there's big bidders here. You see the bidders hold, you see a push, but now we're starting to get, and I showed my Discord this, I'm like, this is where you start to get this whiplashy price action, right? And I started selling my long up here because I'm like, look at the bid. You can tell they're pulling the bids. There's a lot of empty space, and there's empty space to the upside and to the downside, and it's kind of um, you either playing the game. If you're long, you're just hoping to keep squeezing, or you're hoping new bids come in. But that's a dangerous game to play the more extended a stock gets, right? So I decided to get out completely, and then here's that deep pullback to the 1 minute 20 where they threw up a bunch of bids. Now I didn't want to relong it here just because um, I thought it was getting extended, but some people in my room actually did go long way down here with like 704, 705 averages. And I'm like, it is a good long. But you never, I told them if it comes back to test those bids, you want to get out. But This is what I call a Momo long, where you pull it down to the 1 minute 20, you throw up some bids, and you rip it. You just, you know, 10% dump, trap a bunch of shorts, and then rip the stock, right? But that type of pattern has to work very quickly. But here we see 7.5 getting held, hard held. 7.5, we'll go to the chart. Um, you can clearly see 7.5 and it gets rolled over, right? So a way a lot of manipulated longs work is A, they need big volume. Big volume is the most important factor, and I already knew this was already going to trade big volume. So I was like, all right, it's going to be, it's probably going to be rigged, and they're walking it down into VWAP. So VWAP is a little scary because sometimes VWAP will act as fake support and will trap longs. But we did get a nice signal, so here's market open. Like I said, you always want a double bounce off of bids because you don't know. For example, this is like the first bounce off this bid. You don't want to just blindly long into this bid because you don't know if that's the bid they're ultimately going to hold, right? You really want a second test. And here we just get a lot of selling. So first of all, what does this selling do? It creates a lot of empty space above that selling, right? And we know the stock has volume, and we know they were purposely holding it below 7.5. So I was like, okay, cool. So here's the first bounce. And like I said in the previous videos, a lot of times the first bounce has minimal bid follow up. You don't want to just chase long, right? You want it to come back down to where these bidders were, right? With a 625 guy. And then I see this bounce, and then I see these guys start to stack, and I instantly longed it. This is where I went long in these 640, 650 guys, right? And I'm like, all right, let me just long here. There's bid follow up, double tested support. I'll just risk down near the 625, 630 guy. Um, and it started to rotate through the empty space. Now, I did sell some on this push up to 7 because even though there was a bid here, there were no bids on the 7 push. So I was like, let me just sell a little bit at 7. They knifed it, but I still wanted to hold my original risk. Just because market open has crazy volatility, you never know what's going to happen. And then they started pushing it, and I'm like, all right, 7.5 is a huge level because that's the painted level they had from the pre-market. And then we got the same problem, and so this ends up being the A plus short. But since I was long, it's so incredibly difficult to full flip long and go short. I only done it a few. Like, I feel like I do that like once every 2 months, and I feel like a genius. But most of the time, when you go long, you have to have a long bias. So you're expecting a certain thing to happen. I did expect 7.5 to get broken, but I also expected high day to get broken. So unless my profit target was literally I'm going to full sell the moment 7.5 gets broken and then look for the short, unless I'm going into the trade with that mentality, it's so hard to flip in real time, especially in low floats where like crazy moves like this happen. And then you don't want to chase. Don't chase. Either you get. I had people in my room who saw this weakness right here and started shorting right here. But yeah, I mean, this is the problem where a key level gets broken with no bid follow up, and you can see them filling the ask, and then they just start to pull it, and this ends up being the top of the day of kind of like that manipulated push. So we'll go back to this, and you'll see here's that 7.5 level. Here's the aggressive, and a lot of shorts have these aggressive initiations, right? Where they clear out the level and pull it. That's why when I started seeing this dump on the book, I sold some, but I was like, oh, let me just like still hold into these bids just in case these bids hold, and they just got sold into, and I was just able to get out way before it down halted. But I was only holding a little bit in my position there anyway, so I luckily already sold most of it. So interesting. Interesting how this chart paint that I thought was bullish, and in many ways it was. Um, but the more extended a stock gets, the more likely chart paint like this is going to turn into a potential, long trap slash short entry before it goes down. And then the other stock is INBS. Let me see if I have that open. INBS. I am still short this, I believe. I have my stop loss in the 11s. Oh, Nice. I was not looking at this at all. Let me show you what happened. During the recording of this video, they painted. You could tell the flat top. Look at the long trap there. That's so funny. Um, I had my risk up in the 1130s, but I did short this. We'll go over. So I saw this pop in the pre-market, and I told my Discord in the pre-market when I saw this pop, I was like, guys, this is the first pop. So it was like it looked like this. I was like, this is the first pop since the big dump day, right? They like exercised a bunch of warrants in a dump. I was like, this. A lot of people think this chart is bearish, right? And because people shorts are taught about uh, bounce shorts into resistance. We're taught that this is very bearish, but time and time again, um, a lot, especially if you watch my videos, we'll see that a lot of this aggressive down only kind of dumps and low floats creates a lot of empty space for a stock to squeeze through, right? And I was like, yeah, a lot of times when you get these quote unquote bounce shorts, um, you get a lot of shorts who try to get in the morning, right? They'll try to get in the pre-market. They'll try to get at market open, 9:45, 10 o'clock. They'll start looking for it right away just because they're like, oh, this is it's a recent, gap and crapper, right? It has tons of bags. It's going to hit resistance, man. And I was like, market makers just abuse that thinking. If everyone thinks the same way, then a lot of people position themselves uh, opposite of what the market maker's doing, and you could read a huge. I was like, so when I saw this pop, I was like, this is actually like, I said if this has volume. So volume is always the most important thing, right? Volume determines kind of the potential of a rig, right? If this was grinding on a couple, like 100, 50k, 100k, 150k, yeah, it could do a couple moves, but a lot of thin rigs tend to top out relatively quickly. But if this just starts trading, look, if this is already doing 600k on this push at $4.5, and the volume starts to get really consistent, and look at the accumulation here. Look at this increasing volume, new high, new high, new high, new high, new high. Um, it's really strong. So I was actually looking to long this after this knife, right? I would never take this short. A, the range is really bad. It's barely up, and B, um, like I said, my discussion, I was like, a lot of people get in way too early on these bounce plays. Um, but I was looking for a double tap off of 3.9, and they just kind of pushed it right away, and I guess I could have got in on this candle. Um, Maybe this was a much better play, but I had I'll tell you right now, I actually wasn't at the PC from about I left during this push from about 10:05. I'm not even joking, probably all the way till 11:40. Um, I was not here to watch any of this price action. I would have been extremely tempted. I'll tell you right now to short this push right here at 6. This actually had a decent looking book map, and they took out a bunch of lower highs with no bid follow up, right? I actually would have been incredibly tempted to short here and probably get stopped out on this candle. But I guess I ended up just getting really lucky. We'll talk about this short though. This short's a lot more interesting. This kind of goes over a lot of stuff I talked about in my HKIT video, also my Holo video. The short that didn't work, but I actually thought was quite good. And what happened here at INBS is um, we'll go over how strong this book was, first of all. Um, except right here, this was a little wonky. I definitely would have taken a loss here. But we got a lot of classic, uh, you know, uh, low float, long traps and short traps here. First of all, big parabolic, massive dump. See this massive? A lot of these huge dumps for my day are short traps. They're like shorts see a stock go parabolic and then dump 25% and they short the first bounce they see and they get squeezed. I'll tell you right now, once you start getting past like 10, 10:30, a lot of the shorts, like look at where high a day is and count how long it takes for the actual like clear out signals to appear, right? You'll notice that most of the signals that lead, I'm talking like the top of these bounces, right? Here, top of these bounces here, top of these bounces here. Um, midday liquidity is just, it's not as volatile as market open. Pre-market and market open moves can happen in like 5 minutes, like 3 minutes. My TOP long happened at 9:33. Like you gotta act, right? You make choices, right? Um, but midday, you really have to shift your mentality and you have to be okay with waiting. And a lot of shorts, they're stuck in that kind of market open mentality, so they try to hit like the first bounce they see. You know what I mean? Here or here or here. You know what I mean? And where the real short often will happen, at least half an hour, at least half an hour, but a lot of times like here to here, that's more than an hour. And then here to here, look at that, that's like 2 hours. That's 2 hours from here to here. It took them 2 hours to build this liquidity to do this secondary squeeze here, which by the way, this has very interesting lower high paint now. I wonder if they do something with it in the after hours. But what do you call it? Like you have to, like a lot of shorts are not okay with seeing. Look how down only this goes. This goes straight down only, like 25 minutes straight, and every short thinks they're missing the move, right? In the meantime, like I didn't want to short this, even though I guess this little $11 push on this candle wasn't that bad. Um, but I really wanted to practice waiting. And when I saw this down only move, I'm like, oh, they're probably going to rotate it through that space, right? Because that's how low floats work. You do 30 minutes of down only from the top, and then you start look how this low held this low all the way until this candle 3.5 hours later, right? That tells you a lot. That tells you a lot about how low floats move, right? A lot of shorts get baited. Like imagine you see this. Imagine you see. Imagine we're at this point in time right here. Big parabolic move, high day clear out, and now it's went from 11.7 and now it's in the low eights, and you're thinking, man, I got to short the first bounce I see because this thing's gonna like fade all the way to $5. Um, but in reality, look at it. They ended up just bid propping it, and I saw this bid prop. But I didn't want to short this bid prop down here because I'm like, well, high day's at 11.7 and this bid prop's at like $10, 10.2. I'm like, I don't want to take a short down here. It's like so far away from high day. But then they started ramping it, and I thought the ramp was really interesting because we'll see on the book. We'll just go all the way to the book. Here's that move. Classic backside clear out move. Look at them fill all these asks. No bid follow up and pull. Look at that. What a move, dude. Perfect backside clear out move, dude. Anyways, I wasn't even looking at that because I was making this video. But anyways, here's the move I shorted above 11. So so 11 is obviously a whole dollar. So taking out 11, taking out this ask at 11 was big. And then once I saw no bid follow up plus the higher low paint, you could see the bid prop, right? Oops. Let's get this out of the way. You can see the bid prop here. You can see it propping. This is a bearish factor on a stock that already went crazy parabolic, and now you're getting nothing but higher lows for an hour straight. That's bearish. And then once it got above 11 with no bids, I shorted it. I was like, I shorted. Another not bad entry was this push, this little push right here. Second push is always nice. Anyways, I took some off at the 1 minute 200, and then now I'll probably after this video I'll cover some more, then maybe hold some of it. I am a bit afraid of the after hours kind of squeezing these lower highs, but we'll see how that works. But yeah, I mean major lessons on INBS guys is, on these bound shorts, on these bound shorts, uh, you want to be careful, especially in the more pre-market in the morning, right? I consider it bullish, and then yeah, I mean I'll go over. Here's that $6 short. I probably would have got stopped out on when it broke $6 here. right here. This is at 10:45 a.m. market time. So you got big down only. It's a bullish factor. See how down only this was. Creates a lot of empty space. Lower highs at 6. You squeeze the lower highs. Minimal bid follow up. Lots of ass stacked up here. Here's a mini second push that runs right into it and gets stuffed. This is actually pretty nice. They just rigged it. I mean, look, they didn't even throw out bids. They just kind of no bids even showed up on this. They just decided to squeeze it, and uh, yeah. I was just very lucky I wasn't here for that. I'm not gonna lie, probably. And then look at, I had people in my Discord long this play over here. This is a genius long, dude. This is a really genius long. Um, where they start stacking a bunch. This is what I call longing at the top, where they start stacking a bunch of bids and it has an empty order book to the upside, and then they just rip it. Look at the bid follow up, like all these bids, all these little bids following the stock. Look at, oh my god, dude, this is what an insane long. Anyways, what do you call it? But yeah, here's that dump. Here's that dump from 11.4s down to 8.2s. Look at all that empty space. Look at the bids coming, right? This is a long signal. Right here. This is a long signal. Straight up long signal. And yeah, they did another, but again, this is why a lot of times when you get, going back to my top part of the video earlier, if you're longing up here, if you're longing into these bids, because you think this is a short trap, because all these shorts going to be chasing this parabolic dump move, you got to sell into high day, because this is what I mean. You never know how much continuation a stock that's already significantly extended is going to have, right? So even if you're bullish, you have to be prepared to take profits, especially when there's minimal bid follow up, right? Um, but yeah, this move was great. Swiped at $11 level, bid prop into the aggressive $11 swipe, no bids following it up, shorted above 11. And you want to get your average above or at least as close to 11 as possible in this case, because the entire thesis behind this is it's not going to break through these asks to the upside. So just try to get the best average you can, and then yeah, they set up a secondary move. That's so funny. I had my risk up here above these guys, above these two guys. And what a move! Can't believe I missed that. Anyways, that's my video for today. Uh, this trade worked out pretty well. Really one of the major lessons on these midday shorts, on these strong, high volume names, just be patient. Don't worry about the down only. Understand that a lot of times the best. Understand, first of all, there's gonna be times this play goes straight down, and you're not gonna be. I'm not in moves all the time. Um, but there's other times where it's gonna take like an hour for the move to happen, and it's painless, literally painless. Short of this candle, literally painless. A little worried about this. I saw this consolidate. I saw this. You can see the flag. See the flag here, right? Or pennant, or whatever you call it. I don't care what you call it. But yeah, nice trade. Um, INBS and TOP. I'm a little sad I missed the TOP trade. TOP ended up just kind of hanging around though. This thing has some weird accumulation happening. I would not be surprised to see this push in the after hours. You can see the lower high paint. They're painting lower highs, lower high, lower high, lower high. Whole dollars right here. Got a million lower highs here. Maybe this just, TOP, one of those tickers. I would not even be surprised for after hours to be like fucking just ramp it. Double top over here. Who knows? I'm probably not going to be trading it. Yeah, what a sick short. Huge, massive brain. Understand the $half paint and understand it's a key level to either, to target. So, all right, guys. That's it for today. Have a good one.